do this. One thing the Conservatives list in their platform that I really like is wanting to make it easier to file and understand their taxes. Honestly though, the word understand in there concerns me, but I've always been a huge advocate of tax systems like they have in many European countries. Basically, the Central Tax Authority does your taxes for you, and then they send it to you and you can choose to add on or revise to your taxes as needed. This is something that is being proposed by Carney and the Liberals. For most Canadians, the CRA literally has everything that they need to do your taxes for you. So this would be a step in the right direction, I'd hope. On the other hand, arguably one of their worst and most damaging policies is their one-for-one spending law, where for every new dollar of spending, an equal amount would be reduced. They already aren't following that with this budget though, and that's because it would be functionally impossible for any government to do that without collapsing the economy. But don't think that'll stop Pierre from trying. And some of their policies really are common sense, even if they are attempting to appeal to a particular base. Like for example, paying to create more rest zones for truckers. While the appeal here may be more focused on convoy adjacent voters, there is a real need and safety benefit for having this. But having more zones doesn't really mean anything if we don't also amend our labor laws to allow for those truckers to make use of those zones. The Conservatives also want to end the rebates for Chinese EVs, and while I understand the sentiment, Chinese vehicles are so much cheaper than other cars, and preventing Canadians from buying them through tariffs and other means essentially makes car ownership for Canadians way more expensive. And this is a catch-22 that all the parties are caught in. It's also a deeper conversation that we have to have as a nation. They also want to use Article 6 of the Paris Agreement to reach our climate goals. This is laughable. Article 6 says that countries are able to transfer carbon credits earned from the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions to help one or more countries meet their climate targets. Pierre doesn't state how we would use Article 6 though, as normally wealthy nations like Canada would be the ones reducing their emissions and then giving our credits away to developing nations. But it seems like Pierre wants to incentivize other nations to give us credits so that we can sell them our natural gas. It's honestly pretty confusing and doesn't make a lick of sense. Pierre just doesn't want to reduce emissions. Another one that I can't wrap my head around is them wanting to remove the requirement to report the sale of your home to the CRA. If somebody could explain the logic of this one to me, I'd appreciate it. Their building homes plan is a lot of carrots and sticks, giving more money to municipalities that reach the goals they set and penalizing the ones that don't. But also those goals can be incredibly unrealistic for many areas. One thing that I don't think any of us would expect to see in a conservative platform though is a return to a housing first approach to eliminating homelessness. This is so that individuals experiencing homelessness can have a stable place to live. That's a pretty incredibly progressive stance for Pierre to have, but it's also a very common sense approach. The issue is that it is in direct opposition to their stances on drug addiction and treatment, so I'm unsure how they would actually be able to fully implement this in different scenarios. It's also in opposition to their crime platform of ending tent cities, which they identify as being crime infested. These two could go hand in hand, but the platform seems to put them in opposition to each other. Another policy that I find concerning is that they want to eliminate university degree requirements for most federal public service roles to hire for skill, not credentials. It's giving Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense. If you don't get that reference, he's the alcoholic Fox News host that Trump hired who leaked war plans on a Signal chat to a journalist and his family. And only one of those leaks was an accident. They also want to cut down on consultant spending, which I'm all here for as long as we focus on building in-house expertise. I also find it funny how they want to have it to be a promise in their platform to not privatize healthcare or make abortions illegal. Specifically, they state in their platform that they will uphold the Canada Health Act and defend universal public healthcare, and that a conservative government will not support any legislation to regulate abortion. There will be no laws, rules, or regulations passed restricting abortion. But they also won't commit to preventing their members from bringing forward private members' bills on the matter. They just promise that they won't pass. There's also other policies that we're familiar with, like how they want to end safe supply programs, which inherently means they'd rather there be an unsafe supply, I guess. Rhetoric aside, we know that safe supply programs save lives and help get people into recovery. This is opposed to the forced recovery model that the Conservatives have in their platform. And this is also concerning as there is no evidence to suggest that forced treatment works. They've also thankfully changed their stance on right-to-work legislation. They've promised not to bring it in anymore, which is essentially union-busting legislation designed to destroy unions by reducing their membership and their bargaining power. This used to be something that Pierre spoke very highly of, but I assume that blue-collar unions talked him out of it. There's also his stance to defund the CBC, but not Radio-Canada, which is obviously the same organization, but whatever. They want to add the following to the citizenship oath, and I quote, "I pledge gratitude to those who worked, sacrificed, and gave their lives to defend the freedom I now enjoy and to build the country of Canada I now call home. Like them, I pledge to fulfill my duties as a Canadian citizen." I guess that's fine, sure. An extremely concerning and literal Trump policy in the Conservative platform, though, is requiring universities to enforce the standards of Section 2 of the Charter's freedom of expression as a condition for federal funding. This essentially means that if the Conservatives think that a university has an anti-conservative or a pro-liberal bias, that their funding could be cut. He basically wants to cancel woke in universities. Trump has been actively weaponizing this in recent weeks, and this is quite literally something that fascist movements globally have historically done. This is actually one of the most chilling things I have ever seen a Canadian political party propose. The Conservatives also want to introduce legislation which would mandate referendums for any tax increase moving forward. And let's be very clear here, this would absolutely destroy the ability of the federal government to raise funds or cool inflation outside of monetary policy, which is directly controlled by the central bank. They essentially want to make tax increases impossible. And I'm sure there's some people out there who think that that sounds great, but it would truly be economically devastating and mostly support the richest Canadians. It should also be noted that the platform only mentions women 4 times, and in 3 of those times, it's in regards to an anti-trans policy. For comparison, the Liberals mention women 40 times. Speaking of women, they also seem to imply that the childcare program will still be honored, but only for the current term, meaning that any millennials and Gen Zs who are voting for the Conservatives who don't have children yet will probably not have children in time to benefit from the program before it's cancelled by Pierre in a few years. They also have a whole platform about Quebec. I'm not going to go into it though. Looking at what the experts have been saying, the Conservative platform, and specifically the fiscal and budgeting aspect, is a fairy tale and unrealistic. I say this knowing full well that Carney's plan is still a stretch, but at least it's a stretch that's within reach.
Okay.